AWS Certified Developer, Associate, DVA-C02, exam dumps are available online to help you get certified easily. 1. A company is using an AWS Lambda function to process records from an Amazon Kinesis data stream. The company recently observed slow processing of the records. A developer notices that the iterator age metric for the function is increasing and that the Lambda run duration is constantly above normal. Which actions should the developer take to increase the processing speed? Choose 2. A. Increase the number of shards of the Kinesis data stream. B. Decrease the timeout of the Lambda function. C. Increase the memory that is allocated to the Lambda function. D. Decrease the number of shards of the Kinesis data stream. E. Increase the timeout of the Lambda function. Answer: A, C. 2. A developer wants to insert a record into an Amazon DynamoDB table as soon as a new file is added to an Amazon S3 bucket. Which set of steps would be necessary to achieve this? A. Create an event with Amazon Event Bridge that will monitor the S3 bucket and then insert the records into DynamoDB. B. Configure an S3 event to invoke an AWS Lambda function that inserts records into DynamoDB. C. Create an AWS Lambda function that will poll the S3 bucket and then insert the records into DynamoDB. D. Create a cron job that will run at a scheduled time and insert the records into DynamoDB. 3. An application that is hosted on an Amazon EC2 instance needs access to files that are stored in an Amazon S3 bucket. The application lists the objects that are stored in the S3 bucket and displays a table to the user. During testing, a developer discovers that the application does not show any objects in the list. What is the most secure way to resolve this issue? A. Update the IAM instance profile that is attached to the EC2 instance to include the S3 * permission for the S3 bucket. B. Update the IAM instance profile that is attached to the EC2 instance to include the S3 list bucket permission for the S3 bucket. C. Update the developer's user permissions to include the S3 list bucket permission for the S3 bucket. D. Update the S3 bucket policy by including the S3 list bucket permission and by setting the principal element to specify the account number of the EC2 instance. 4. A company is running a custom application on a set of on-premises Linux servers that are accessed using Amazon API Gateway. AWS X-ray tracing has been enabled on the API test stage. How can a developer enable X-ray tracing on the on-premises servers with the least amount of configuration? A. Install and run the X-ray SDK on the on-premises servers to capture and relay the data to the X-ray service. B. Install and run the X-ray daemon on the on-premises servers to capture and relay the data to the X-ray service. C. Capture incoming requests on premises and configure an AWS Lambda function to pull, process, and relay relevant data to X-ray using the put_trace_segments API call. D. Capture incoming requests on premises and configure an AWS Lambda function to pull, process, and relay relevant data to X-ray using the put_telemetry_records API call. 5. An application uses Lambda functions to extract metadata from files uploaded to an S3 bucket. The metadata is stored in Amazon DynamoDB. The application starts behaving unexpectedly, and the developer wants to examine the logs of the Lambda function code for errors. Based on this system configuration, where would the developer find the logs? A. Amazon S3. B. Oz CloudTrail. C. Amazon CloudWatch. D. Amazon DynamoDB. 6. A developer needs to perform geographic load testing of an API. The developer must deploy resources to multiple AWS regions to support the load testing of the API. How can the developer meet these requirements without additional application code? A. Create and deploy an AWS Lambda function in each desired region. Configure the Lambda function to create a stack from an AWS CloudFormation template in that region when the function is invoked. B. Create an AWS CloudFormation template that defines the load test resources. Use the AWS CLI create stack set command to create a stack set in the desired regions. C. Create an AWS Systems Manager document that defines the resources. Use the document to create the resources in the desired regions. D. Create an AWS CloudFormation template that defines the load test resources. Use the AWS CLI deploy command to create a stack from the template in each region. 7. A developer has a legacy application that is hosted on-premises. Other applications hosted on AWS depend on the on-premises application for proper functioning. In case of any application errors, the developer wants to be able to use Amazon CloudWatch to monitor and troubleshoot all applications from one place. How can the developer accomplish this? A. Install an AWS SDK on the on-premises server to automatically send logs to CloudWatch. B. Download the CloudWatch agent to the on-premises server. Configure the agent to use IAM user credentials with permissions for CloudWatch. C. Upload log files from the on-premises server to Amazon S3 and have CloudWatch read the files. D. Upload log files from the on-premises server to an Amazon EC2 instance and have the instance forward the logs to CloudWatch. 8. A developer is creating an application that includes an Amazon API Gateway REST API in the US East 2 region. The developer wants to use Amazon CloudFront and a custom domain name for the API. The developer has acquired an SSL/TLS certificate for the domain from a third-party provider. How should the developer configure the custom domain for the application? A. Import the SSL/TLS certificate into AWS Certificate Manager, ACM, in the same region as the API. Create a DNS record for the custom domain. B. Import the SSL/TLS certificate into CloudFront. Create a DNS CNAME record for the custom domain. C. Import the SSL/TLS certificate into AWS Certificate Manager, ACM, in the same region as the API. Create a DNS CNAME record for the custom domain. D. Import the SSL/TLS certificate into AWS Certificate Manager, ACM, in the US East 1 region. Create a DNS CNAME record for the custom domain. 9. An Amazon Kinesis data firehose delivery stream is receiving customer data that contains personally identifiable information. A developer needs to remove pattern-based customer identifiers from the data and store the modified data in an Amazon S3 bucket.